Hey, I'm Andy MacNeil, host of the Puck Portfolio, Canada Sports Betting's hockey and sports betting podcast. I'll be here weekdays on the Canada Sports Betting YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcast to provide projections, betting advice, and strategies to help you make informed bets throughout the NHL season. Speaking of Canada Sports Betting, we're so close to reaching 1,000 subscribers here on YouTube. So hit that like button on the video and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Thank you so much for your support. Also, if you're thinking about signing up for one of the many sports books that are available to Canadians, please do so responsibly, of course, and check out canadasportsbetting.ca's review pages to find reviews and offers. You can find the link in the description of this video. Quick update for Wednesday's games. I updated the projection model and the Senators came back minus 142 with Anton Forsberg expected to start. Looks like that's going to be the case, while the Red Wings came in at plus 105. So I played Detroit small at plus 115, which is about where I drew the line for half of a unit. I'm not interested in betting on Detroit at plus 110 or anything like that. Cutoffs keep you honest. So plus 115, plus 114, really, or better on the Detroit Red Wings, but just a small play, half unit. Shop around for that one. I'm really hoping all of you stop betting on the Senators here so I don't feel pressure to bet on the Capitals at big odds. Washington has a win, but it was over the Flames, and they've looked old and slow. Probably because they are old and slow. The Caps are in the plus 150 range now. And while I think I have enough willpower to disregard what the model says here about this team in favor of what my eyes are seeing, I'm thinking about fading the Senators' hype on Wednesday. Don't get me wrong. I really like the Sens. I think they've looked good overall through their first week, but I think this price is just a bit too harsh on Washington, who might just have their legs under them now that they've played a couple of games. Also, keep an eye on Tim Stutzla's status. He missed Tuesday's practice, but it is believed that that was just for a maintenance day. Although, how many young players need maintenance days this early in the season? So I would suspect that Stutzla is dealing with something, even if it is just a minor injury. I'm counting him in for now, but the Sens odds of winning would drop pretty significantly if Stutzla isn't in the lineup. He's one of their best scorers, maybe their best scorer, and he was out of the line, and he was not at practice on Tuesday. So that would give me the incentive that I need to bet the Washington Capitals at that plus 50 price if Stutzla is not in the lineup. But I would suspect that that move would happen pretty fast. So you'd have to be on your game for that one. For now, I'm going to hold off. Let's get into a schedule breakdown before we get into the game projections. So I'm just going to show you what I've got here for the next 3 days of NHL action, October 18th, 19th, and 20th. The rest column, that's how many days rest a team has. The load column, that's whether they played 2 games in 2 nights, a back to back, 3 games in four, 4 games in six, 5 games in seven, goes up to 6 games in 9 nights. So I'll be updating you with that information throughout the week, and you'll have a pretty good handle on the NHL schedule. All things considered, there are 12 over 1,300 games in the NHL regular season, so it's a lot to keep up with. This will definitely help. I actually shared it this morning on Twitter at Digital Gambler. So check that out. Give me a follow. I'll have more information on bets that I like and things like that on Twitter, things that don't make it onto the show. And I'll also, just follow up sometimes. So follow me on Twitter at Digital Gambler. I'm not going to get too into the schedule breakdown here. You can take a screenshot. You can go to Twitter. You can save the photo that I posted if you want and kind of study it later. But, the rule of thumb is that having more rest than your opponent is a weapon in the NHL. Now, too much rest can lead to rust. So that is something that people have to consider. You want that, the teams that have 2 or 3 days off. That's kind of the sweet spot there, right? Of course, you can't bet this blindly. It's not going to just win you money, but it will help you maybe make some informed bets when it comes to which teams are rested and which teams aren't. So the other rule of thumb is that the rest typically helps the home team. Having more rest than your opponent, it means more when you're at home, not as much when you're on the road. I would think that that is due to the fact that road teams are sort of conditioned to play on short rest, when they're on a trip. So I think that has a lot to do with it, but it is just a hypothesis. And something to keep in mind here going forward throughout the season. The schedule is going to get a lot busier. You're going to start seeing a lot more, in that load column as far as 3 games in 4 nights, 4 games in 6 nights. The load of schedule will get a lot heavier for teams. So keep an eye on that for sure. Hopefully, you took a picture, like I said. If not, go to Twitter at Digital Gambler. Save that picture to your camera roll, and you'll be able to study it, over the next couple of days. And I like to look a day behind, 3 days, kind of two, at least a day in advance, if not three, because I think, or if not two, sorry, because I think you can really glean some good insights. It can help you maybe project who's going to start in goal in a more recent game. If you look ahead at the schedule, you'll see what I'm talking about here today. We'll talk a little bit about projecting starting goaltenders and things like that. So stuff I haven't really done all that great so far this season, but it is early, so give me a chance, please. Anyway, let's get into the projections now. So obviously, like I said, I've got Wednesday's 2 games up there right now. The Senators projected odds minus 142, 58.6% chance of winning. The Pittsburgh Penguins taking on the Detroit Red Wings minus 105 in favor of the Penguins. They've got a 51.3% chance of winning according to the projection model. But Calgary at Buffalo, that's what we got up first. And by God, the Sabres did it. Buffalo played well in the opening 20 minutes, but they got away from that a bit by the end of the second period. Tampa Bay started to take control of the game in the middle frame, and they cut Buffalo's lead in half late in that second period. It still looked like the Sabres were going to pick up the win in regulation, but Brandon Hagel found the back of the net, his second of the game, with 8 seconds left on the clock. I was beside myself, but I did not expect the Sabres to play a full 60 minutes, and they didn't. John Cooper had pulled the goalie, so that helped. Fortunately, Buffalo absolutely dominated the overtime period, and Dylan Cousins came in with a rocket, potted the winner after a few minutes of extra time. So my biggest winner of the season. I'm happy about it. It felt good despite the sweat. And I mean, winning money is nice, but the closing line value that I got, the Sabres plus 130 closed around minus 117, up to minus 125 at some shops. So I did not want to lose that one. I would have been really, really, really sour if I lost that one. Like I said, Buffalo look good, but they're not a complete team. They need a rookie goaltender, Devin Levi, to come up big throughout that game. Levi's been fine so far, even if his stats do not jump off the page. His 891 save percentage is right around where you would expect it to be based on the shot quality, according to Evolving Hockey. But he's not going to be on that kind of tear every single night, right? Or at least it's pretty unlikely that he will be. So I also think that Levi could get the night off against the Flames. It's a Western Conference opponent, obviously. So we could see Eric Comrie or Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen get a start for the Buffalo Sabres, and we'll be monitoring that one. A little bit of uncertainty with them carrying 3 goaltenders at the moment. So the Sabres, I think they need to be an offensive team. They're a team that they can play defense, but don't underestimate the loss of Matthias Samuelson. He's not a big name brand by any means, but he's a steady presence on the back end. And the Sabres did not perform well when he was out last season, so something to watch there. And what can you say about the Calgary Flames, right? That hasn't been said already. This team is infuriating to watch. Even when I don't have money on them, the Capitals, they look like dog crap in their game versus Calgary, especially earlier. And the Flames still found a way to lose because their best skill is losing 1 goal games. They did it a lot last season, and they're probably going to do it a lot this season, or at least be in a lot of 1 goal games based on the profile of that team, right? So I don't know who will start in this game. I've got Dan Vladar penciled in right now. Calgary minus 108 favorite according to the projection model. That's pretty much what we're seeing here at sportsbooks right now. Kind of a pick 'em across the board. Just to keep things simple, we're going to use North Star Bets today. They've got odds up for all of these games at the moment, and that's where we'll be locking in any bets we make on this show. for Thursday. But I'm not going to flip around today. I've shown you guys how to line shop, and I'll show you guys again, hopefully in another episode. But there's just so much to get to today. Really got to stay on track here. Of course, big slate, 12 game slate on Saturday. Of course, touching on 2 games Wednesday. So we got 14 games to get to. But moving on from the Calgary Flames and the Buffalo Sabres, we got the Toronto Maple Leafs at the Florida Panthers. Of course, Toronto once fell into the trap of playing down to a weaker opponent. This time it was the Chicago Blackhawks who beat the Maple Leafs 3-1 on Wednesday. Toronto is 14-8 when listed as a minus 210 home favorite or higher, dating back to the 2021-22 season. That's a 63.6% win rate and nowhere near good enough to consider backing the Buds in these situations. In fact, if you bet $100 on the Maple Leafs in these situations, you'd have lost, sorry, somewhere in the neighborhood of about $355, even though you won almost 65% of your bets. Now, if you had bet $100 against the Maple Leafs in each of these situations, you'd be up somewhere in the neighborhood of $570. Of course, that big 3-1 Blackhawks win certainly helped, but you'd be up $570 despite only winning about 36% of your bets. So this is why I will continue to preach bet numbers, not teams. Meanwhile, Florida kicked my ass that very same night by beating the Devils, and I still quite haven't recovered from that one. So I'm expecting Sam Bennett to be back in the lineup on Thursday, but I like the Toronto Maple Leafs here initially looking at this price, minus 112 at North Star Bets currently. Pick them across the market, it seems like, give or take a couple of cents. So even with Bennett back in the lineup, I expect to see Ilya Samsonov in goal, especially after Joseph Wall's tough night earlier in the week, over the weekend. Sorry, but yeah, it's a game that I like the Leafs to win, and I think there's some value here at minus 110. So I will lock minus 110 in, or sorry, minus 112 in on the Maple Leafs. 0 0.9 units, so almost a full unit play, but 0.9 units locked in on the Maple Leafs at minus 112. Next up, Nashville and the Rangers. The Preds got their butts handed to them by the Oilers on Tuesday, and you could kind of see that coming with Edmonton having lost back-to-back games to open the season, right? Saros did not have a good night. He was pulled after allowing 4 goals on 11 shots against the Oilers in the first period in favor of backup Kevin Lankinen. So I would expect Saros to be back in the lineup against the Rangers in this game. He pretty much had the night off with Lankinen playing 40 minutes. So I would imagine the Preds are going to want to give themselves the best chance to win against Igor Shesterkin and the New York Rangers, right? Shesterkin, a Vezina winner, a Vezina caliber goaltender. But Jonathan Quick has not started yet. And I don't think it'll be this game, but it could be. It's a Western Conference opponent. It is a home game, though. So if you look ahead at the Rangers schedule, I like to preach looking ahead. As you guys probably know now, New York plays their next 6 games, including this one, against Western Conference opponents, and 5 are on the road, though. So I imagine Quick will get a start against maybe one of the Western Canadian teams or something like that, or maybe a couple of starts on this road trip. You never know, because they might be able to get away with this, trying to get a win against some Western Conference opponents. But I've got the Rangers listed at minus 202. That's kind of the midpoint price here, basically what we're seeing at North Star right now, minus 220 for the Rangers money line, plus 175 on the side of the Predators. So I'm right in the middle. Basically, I'm in agreement with the sports book, with the betting market, I guess, right now. And we'll see if that changes, but I doubt it will because of that straddle, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But let's get on to the Oilers. Hey, Edmonton, big win for the Oilers and me on Tuesday. But if anything, I was reminded, you know, only to assume something has already been factored into the odds, unless you're going to, if you're going to take a wait and see approach to betting said odds. I expected to see Jack Campbell between the pipes for the Oilers on Tuesday. I was right about that. I didn't think the Oilers' money line odds were high enough, though, to justify moving on the Preds if that was the case. So I was surprised a bit when the money line moved down on the Oilers. I bet the Oilers early, thinking that would be the best opportunity I had to get down on Edmonton, and I was wrong. I won the bet, but I'm definitely sour. I did not make a good bet. You're starting to see how I kind of grade my bets and how I determine whether it was a good bet or a bad bet. Of course, like, winning is important. You want to win money at the end of the day, but There are certain indicators, closing line value being one, the timing of your bets, etc., that I really think mean a lot to your bottom line in the long term, and you want to keep track of that. So we will be doing that on this show each Monday. I'll break down my betting record from the previous week as well, year to date, season to date, whatever you want to call it. So the Flyers, they're bad. They got a win in their home opener versus the Canucks, but I don't think they played very well early. And they probably are more suited to play with a lead like that when Connor Hart or Carter Hart, sorry, is on his game. Hart is from Edmonton. Maybe he gets the start, but backup Samuel Urson hasn't started a game yet. And there aren't many easy games on the Flyers schedule this month. They have one of the toughest October schedules. The Flyers host the Ducks on October 27th. That is basically their next winnable game, if you want to call it that. I have the Flyers listed as a small favorite. It's a ways out, but I've got the Flyers projected to be a small favorite in that one. But that's on October 27th, long way out. I would wonder if Urson does not get a start here before that. So keep an eye on the Oilers because I do like the Oilers at minus 230, even if Hart is in there. I'm not sure who's going to start for Edmonton though. Campbell played really good in Edmonton in Nashville on Tuesday. He was really good and he made some big saves. I think that might get lost on some people because the Oilers spanked the Predators, but it allowed Edmonton to get going offensively. I wonder if he hasn't been earned himself another start here against Philadelphia, but maybe he's earned himself another start against a tougher opponent. So I'm curious here. I think that I don't think there's a big difference, honestly, between Stuart Skinner. I don't have enough evidence to show me that Stuart Skinner is a bona fide starter in the NHL. So while I do like him, if his eh, depending on his current form, I guess, because I think that matters a lot when it comes to goaltenders. It's a new season, and I kind of start things fresh with goaltenders because honestly, I'm not all that confident in my assessment of the goaltending position, and I think if you are, you're crazy. So I do my best. I think obviously, if there was one place or one area of the game that we could make the most inroads with in terms of our analysis, it's goaltending, right? Because it's a tough position to play. It's a tough position to figure out. But we'll move on. Keep an eye on the Oilers. I'm not locking in that one yet, just yet. Big price there, so I want to get it right. I don't want to make the same mistake that I made on Tuesday, or sorry, Monday evening, I guess, when I bet on the Oilers, and Tuesday when I still recommended them as being a good bet off the minus 140. That news came out. The line moved the other way. It's going to happen sometimes, but you got to learn from it, right? So I'm trying to learn from it, and we'll move on to Vancouver and Tampa Bay because this is a bet that I like. I mean, I think the Canucks, they look bad. Rick Tocchet will tell you they look bad against the Flyers. They looked all right early, but two goals ended up in the back of their net, and before you know, the game was kind of sort of out of reach. So I like Vancouver. It's a three-quarter unit play, so 0.75 units on the Canucks at plus 132, which is the line that's available at North Star Bets right now. So I'm interested in the Canucks, and I'm gonna lock that in right now. There's a chance we could see DeSmith in goal, but I think Vancouver's a decent play, even if that happens, because the Lightning have just not been good yet this season. It's really that is really the case. They are not playing well. John Cooper talked before the game about how his message to the team was protect the middle, keep things to the outside, and he said that he thought the Lightning had been doing a pretty good job over all of that so far, but I think he's out to lunch. Like, I know he's got better data than me, but scoring chances, expected goals against per 60 minutes, not in the Lightning's favor at all so far this season. They're bottom 10, bottom five in both categories, or at least they were leading up to last night's game against the Buffalo Sabres. And I don't think it changed all that much. They played pretty well in the second and third period against the Sabres, but they're really playing a defensive, sort of passive aggressive style of hockey. So, speaking of coaches, like I said, Rick Tocchet ripped the team after Tuesday's loss. I don't know if I'd say rip, but he had some harsh criticisms, let's just say. And this is the Lightning's fourth game in 6 days. Steven Stamkos has missed the last two with a leg injury. We don't know if he's going to play. So, Canucks plus 132, 0.75 units. That's on top of the Maple Leafs at minus 112, which is a zero point 0.9 unit play. Next up, we got Los Angeles and Minnesota. Los Angeles finally looked like the team that we saw last season with Tuesday's big win over the Winnipeg Jets. The Kings are going to be without Victor Arvidsson for a while, but they're pretty used to that. It hurts, but he's an injury-prone player, so they're kind of used to that. Minnesota, however, without defenseman Jarrett Spurgeon already, they're going to be without forward Matt Boldy, who was projected to be one of their top producers this season. So it's a big loss, and I've got the Wild as a small favorite, or the projection model has the Wild as a small favorite, winning about 51% of the time. But that means there's, a better chance that I'll be betting on the Kings as an underdog. And if those odds, which are currently listed at plus 104, move any lower, I'll start to consider that, regardless of who's in goal for LA. I've got it listed at 50-50 right now. So what I do there, if I ever say that and you're wondering what's he talking about, I take the rating for the backup goaltender and the starting goaltender, and I just average them, and that's what I use for like a preliminary rating for the team, and it'll change a little bit based on who is actually in goal later on, but need to make some sort of prediction. Sometimes it's pretty tough, so you flip a coin and try to make the best estimate that you can here, right? Because I think overall it'll hopefully work out in the wash for me, but nothing on the Kings as of right now. There is something on the Arizona Coyotes, though. Arizona, a sizable dog versus the St. Louis Blues. I mean, I know it's their third game in 4 nights, but come on, the Blues, they're missing, or they might be missing, Pavel Buchnevich. He's listed as day-to-day. Coyotes, man, the Desert Dogs are a good underdog. They played well in New York. They played well against the Rangers and the Islanders, both one-goal losses. I like the Coyotes here. I think the projection model has a pretty reasonable estimate of this game. It still makes the Blues a favorite at minus 120, but that means the Coyotes should be plus 120. So I'm interested for sure in betting the Coyotes at the current odds of plus 138. Lots of value here. 1.15 unit play for me on the Coyotes. Hopefully, Karel Vejmelka is in goal, but if it is Connor Ingram, I would imagine that the Coyotes will still have a pretty decent chance of winning this game. The only unfortunate part would be that the line, the odds will probably move in the opposite direction if that's the case. So we'll see. But Coyotes plus 138 locked in for 1.15 units. That's my biggest play of the day so far for Thursday. And it's going to be a fun one. I think these two teams can get pretty wild when they play each other. And I like it. St. Louis, Arizona might not be the marquee matchup of Thursday night, but it's one I'll be watching for sure. So Vegas at Winnipeg. Gabriel Velarde's injury did not look good. Neither did the Jets, who got blown out in Pierre-Luc Dubois' return to the peg. The Golden Knights are also listing Alex Pietrangelo as day-to-day, so I'll want to find out more about both players' status before finalizing my projection for this game. Vegas should still be the favorite regardless, though. And looking at the Dallas Stars and the Anaheim Ducks, Rupe Hintz made his season debut after missing the first game. But it wasn't enough to get the Stars past the Golden Knights. They tied the game late in the third period, won in a shootout. Anaheim beat Carolina 6-3 on Sunday, but I think that was an aberration. Don't expect the Ducks to be any good this season. Ducks number 2 pick, Leo Carlson, is getting closer to making his NHL debut, so keep an eye on that one. I've got Dallas projected to win the game 69.9% of the time, minus 232. Those projected odds plus 232 on the other side. So I mentioned the word straddle before. We're going to talk about that a little bit before I wrap things up for the day. Carolina and Seattle. People are going to be interested in this one because, look, the Kraken, they're fading fast. They've scored 3 goals in 4 games. Sebastian Aho, though, he missed Tuesday's game for the Carolina Hurricanes against the San Jose Sharks. Head coach Rod Brendamore confirmed that Aho suffered an injury in the previous game, saying he was not 100%, and anytime a player is not 100%, they're going to get him some rest. I wonder if this is not just some load management. We see that in the NBA, not so much in the NHL, but I wonder if that is the case. Aho, you can give him the night off against the San Jose Sharks. Probably wasn't as easy as the Hurricanes expected it to be, but they got the win nonetheless. Goaltender Frederik Andersen, however, he's listed as day-to-day after being pulled from Tuesday's game in San Jose after he was struck by a puck in the helmet. Sounds like it was just precautionary, but the Hurricanes are also still without Andrei Svechnikov, and he isn't due back until closer to the end of the month. October 24th listed on a lot of outlets right now as his possible return date. But, just thinking about Carolina here, looking at the projection model, minus 130, or sorry, minus 153 on the Hurricanes. Well, North Star Bets has the Hurricanes listed at minus 132 currently. So some really good value on Carolina. In fact, I could justify making, 1.5 unit play on the Hurricanes at this price if their lineup information was a bit more available, right? So we've got to speculate on some things. Aho, will he play? Will he not play? The current line, you see the projected line, minus 153. That assumes that Aho and Frederick Anderson will be back in the lineup. Not expecting Svechnikov to be back in, of course, but Aho and Anderson, that's who I've got projected to be in there. And you'll wonder, like, what happens if they're not? Will that result in a bet on the Seattle Kraken? Well, the Seattle Kraken are plus 108 right now. So if they're not out, there is no bet. There is no way that number can move that far because of the bookmakers vigorous, right? On this one, I already think that the line is basically pricing out Aho and Anderson. And so if that's the case, then things will only move upwards if those players are in. If they're out, I think that it would be mostly square action coming in on the Seattle Kraken. I don't think that there is a good bet to be made on Seattle at plus 108. You'd need to take out a couple of more Carolina players, like take out Brent Burns and Martin Natchez and some players like that, and then maybe I'll think about betting the Kraken at plus 108, but not if the Hurricanes are just missing Anderson, Svechnikov, and Aho. But I do think we might see Aho back in the lineup. The Hurricanes probably had a little bit more of a dicey time over the weekend than they and into this week than they would have liked to. So sounds like it was precautionary for Anderson. Sounds like a bit of load management for Aho, something to keep an eye on because I'm not going to lock it in right now. But if you do see any news, which I'll try to relay to you guys on Twitter when it becomes available, you'll want to run and try to get to that Hurricanes number because it is a great price and would end up being arguably my biggest bet for this slate if both of those players are in. Now, next up, Chicago at Colorado. It's Chicago or nothing for me, but probably nothing. The Blackhawks, they're going to be a good underdog bet some nights for sure, but I don't think that's the case on Thursday, though. Avalanche probably going to roll, and the projection model has them sitting at minus 270, plus 270 on the side of the Blackhawks. And if you look at North Star Bets, plus 260. So too short on the Blackhawks, not really close. Too high on the Colorado Avalanche, not close. Don't suspect I will have any bet in this game as far as the money line goes. And of course, we got to talk about one more game, the Boston Bruins at the San Jose Sharks. Look, the Bruins have a really easy schedule in October. It would not surprise me if they go 7-0 or 6-1. Their first 7 games are Chicago, Nashville, both at home. They won both of those games. Now they're on the road at San Jose, at Los Angeles, LA. That might be a tough one, at Anaheim, at Chicago, back home versus Anaheim. They could run the table here on this little stretch. And I don't think that's going to tell us very much about this team. Maybe that they can still, beat the worst teams in the NHL, but they're going to be a big favorite in just about every game. I don't anticipate betting on them very much this month because of that, because, we just haven't learned enough about this team, the post Bergeron version of this team to back them in these kind of situations. And who knows who's going to start for San Jose? Is it going to be Mackenzie Blackwood? Because he's been pretty good so far, all things considered. And I wonder if he won't create some value on the San Jose Sharks. But that's it for me for Wednesday's episode of the Puck Portfolio. Big look ahead to Thursday's lines. Got some money line bets locked in. The Leafs minus 112, the Canucks plus 132, Arizona plus 138, and we're going to keep an eye on Edmonton, and we're also going to keep an eye on the Carolina Hurricanes. Some injury news to look for with the Carolina Hurricanes, some goaltending confirmations to think about when it comes to the Edmonton Oilers. All right, that does it. Good luck with your bets on Thursday, Wednesday too. Of course, hit me up on Twitter at Digital Gambler. Like the video, subscribe, comment, do all that stuff. Get us to 1,000 followers. We really could use the help. So thanks a lot. See ya on Thursday for another episode of the Puck Portfolio.